seen on the flippin' internet, and I just want to go freaking crazy. This guy, I don't subscribe to him. Adrian's Digital Basement. He just posted this video tonight. Yep, because today's May 2nd, right? Yep, May 2nd, 12,000 views. He's doing a trash-picked voicemail system. It's Merlin messaging and Merlin Mail, and he's looking at it from a PC guy. You want me to start making fun of this guy? Because I don't like how he says we. Say, you wonder why I'm not in technology anymore. We'll talk about me later.
While I was at work, I was recycling some boxes, some stuff I had shipped, and I saw this little beige box sitting in the e-waste container with stuff that was ready to be scrapped. Normally you might see something like this and just pass it over because it's probably just some kind of industrial or office thing that doesn't really do anything interesting and whatever, would just go to e-waste with the rest of the stuff in the bin. But I took a little bit of a look and I saw something interesting. On the top of the box, there's something that gives away what this actually is.
It
says
called
Lucent,
a
which is the
vendor.
brand, and Merlin Mail. And what this is a voicemail system for an old Lucent phone system.
Oh my God.
Lucent was one of the spin-offs of AT&T at some point in the US, and they were pretty popular as phone systems in offices at the time. If you were watching movies or TV shows in the late 80s and into the 90s and probably in the early 2000s,
I don't talk
you definitely
for
were
a
seeing
reason.
these Lucent phones on TV shows. There was often an AT&T logo on the bottom of the handset, which wasn't normally there, but it was placed there as a product placement. So whenever someone in an office environment was talking on the phone, you'd see the Lucent or the AT&T logo there. This thing is a pretty sturdy, solid box. On the front here, there's really not much going on, just a little bit of a vent. On the bottom, there's nothing but
compliance,
just sort of FCC and certification labels. But the back of the machine was what really piqued my interest. Obviously, IEC mains input, power switch, but these here, these certainly look a lot like PC slot covers. If you've ever worked in the telecom industry, a lot of phone systems are very modular and they have cards. Well, the older ones. This was before IP phones were common. These are just servers now that run software. But in the old days, there were these digital cards and they were stuck in the phone systems. You could install and do whatever you needed.
I don't like how he cuts his video.
That methodology with these cards. But the size of the old telecom cards was normally a lot larger than
the voicemail systems used to be a PC. Oh my God.
Really gives away that this might well just be a PC inside of this thing. Let's start at the top.
I need to stop right here. I need to stop right here. I gotta stop right here. I gotta shut up. This guy is calling a vendor a brand. Okay, fuck the consumer. Fuck them. Okay. Secondly, he's globalist. Oh my God. That's why I fucking hate YouTube. How the hell is he getting all the hits? Digital!
Into the phone system, and when a call needed to go to voicemail, it would route the call to these ports
it
here.
Forwarded if it was on busy.
And, play the
oh
message
my God.
It would
it played Lori Nelson.
Where it could signal the voicemail system to show what extension was being dialed, or of course someone might be calling in and they would also be hooked up to one of these trunk lines. And of course, if a user wanted to check their own mail, they probably press a certain number sequence or a button on their phone, and they would get connected to one of these, and then it would prompt them to enter their voicemail box, their password, this, that, and the other thing. Moving down, we see these three ports, and over here it says COM1 and COM2. Well, these are serial ports, and then a blank here that is this port, which looks to be a parallel port, if I was going to guess. Moving down, we have date of manufacture of 7 of 2000, so this thing is almost 20 years old at this
More than
point.
That, it was refurbished.
Telecom equipment has a very long life cycle.
Gee,
so even though
you
this was made
think?
in 2000, this easily could have been sold for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years before this thing was actually bought. I don't really know how current this was, but telecom stuff just lasts a long time.
Oh
and
my
they
God,
don't change
really?
very frequently. At least this older digital analog hybrid telecom
Fuck the
systems.
vintage technologists.
And at the bottom here's the Merlin Mail Release 3. This is obviously something to do with the software. It's multi-voltage. Does say here Merlin Mail MM04 refurbished. And then we have 2 stickers here, probably serial numbers or something like that. I'm imagining the 04 and the model number here probably has to do with the 4 ports this was on. that this has.
Oh, let's check that out via Facebook group.
Otherwise, there's not a lot on here to give
I
away
actually,
that this
that's what I
might
was
be a
commenting
PC
on.
inside, especially because
PC,
you might
a
have
closed
IO ports
PC.
here, like the
I'm
ATX or
going
the
to talk
AT
over you.
connector.
See, you don't have any
Nothing
credibility.
is visible there, and of course on the front, there's no floppy drive or anything way to boot this thing up if, say, you need to recover it. So the obvious next step is let's just crack the cover and take a look what's inside.
His video editing's really lousy.
This thing probably comes off somehow. Oh, seems to slide a little bit. And we lift it right off. All right, so clearly, yeah, this is just a normal PC. You can see the ISA slots down there. And there's a little bit of a mess. And in fact, look at this. The power switch, or the power switch has been disconnected at some point. So let's start with the cards. These two things look the same, and this is obviously that trunk line card. So this is how the phone system interfaces to the voicemail system to send calls to and from it. There is a little logo here, Brook Trout Technology, the serial number sticker, 1994 Brook Trout Technology, and it says COM code Series 4, Issue 4. Issue 4. That sounds very much like this is something out of the UK. This large IC says 1994 on it again, Rev A. I'd imagine that these two ICs right here are the EEPROMs, which I can pull out and I can read those on my Mini Pro. I have a little adapter for that. But that might be good to salvage actually, because it's not likely that I can actually use this card. These are 16-bit cards, but there's just a couple actual traces on the 16-bit connector, so it's probably more for stability. This was installed right there into an 8-bit slot. So this card looks very similar, but not quite the same. Look here, it says issue or Series 3 Issue 4. Now, one thing I noticed that's different is there's actually a TI DSP chip on this one, which this other card seems to be missing. Not sure what the difference is there. They both say 1994 on them. Brook Trout Technology, all very similar there. If you have any knowledge about these cards and maybe if there's any kind of use for them, let me know in the comment section below. I did some Googling and I really found absolutely nothing on them. All I could find was some vague FCC references to the company and this COM code issue
support.avaya.com
and stuff like that. But clearly maybe this is somewhat bespoke for the telecom industry. All right, next up, we have what looks like a multi-IO card. A Gold Star Prime A. Pretty common IDE ISA card. There's a date code here of 1994 on this chip. So even though the computer was built in 2000 supposedly, it seems like all these components are probably from that mid-90s time period. Here on this card, we have an IDE hard drive. Let me take out these 4 screws, get this out of the case. It's a Fujitsu hard drive from 2000, so this seems a bit later than the rest. On the side here it says Merlin Mail and then Fujitsu 6.2 gigs. So I take it these were installed by AT&T, or sorry, Lucent. Pretty funny that this is just a standard PC power supply, so it's got all the hard drive and floppy drive connectors, and they didn't even cut them off. You would have thought they would have at least maybe zip tied them together or just snipped off the cables that weren't to be used. I mean, it's not like this thing was ever going to be upgraded or anything. There's no space for anything else. Well, that's pretty funny. Noticing here that they zip tied a couple of the cables on the power supply cable. So normally there were 4 wires that go to a power switch, and the power connector is plugged in on this side of the power supply. Well, clearly that's not happening. That's the front of the computer where there's nowhere to go. So what they did is they just tied off these, and then the power switch, it actually injects the power directly into this blue and brown leads directly off this IEC mains jack. Okay, so we're getting a good look at the motherboard now. I still can't see the CPU. It's probably underneath this power supply. But it's this board has SIMs, and it has a Dallas semiconductor clock chip here. This Dallas chip is actually a really good thing, because this thing is probably dead by now, and it's actually in a socket, which is even better, because you can modify these to replace the battery, which is integral to this. But the good thing is typically there would be a clock battery over here, and it would have leaked and completely destroyed this motherboard by now. Okay, to get this thing out of the case, looks like I have to take these screws off the bottom of this case, and that'll probably lift it out. There are 2 screws here, but the rest of the mounting screws are under this gap right here.
between the power supply and this plate, and I can't get to those from the front, so I'm going to pop this out.
Okay.
Alright, no, actually,
this
it looks
is
like I gotta take
live.
these nuts off, and I have no idea if this is the right size nut driver, and of course it's not.
This guy does
Alright,
not like Mac OS X, by the way.
Dirty inside the case. Nothing much special about this power supply. Does have the sticker on it, so this was probably an official part. But this just looks like a very run-of-the-mill PC power supply, 200
standard.
watt. Centstron, fancy. Look at the back, just bog standard AT power supply. There is a voltage switch, and there's actually a little bit of a cutout on the case, so you could access that voltage switch. The fan is still turning in there as I turn this power supply a little bit. And I guess with the way the power supply was mounted, it was blowing air out of this vent here out the front of the case. But this thing obviously had its entire life in an office environment, which is why, you know, all things considered, as old as it isn't that dusty. All right, here's the motherboard. Very interesting. It's a 386SX. It's an AMD part, and it's actually labeled 386SX40, so it's a 40 megahertz part.
The Windows logo.
I'm finding this little assembly interesting. It's a capacitor, diode, resistor, and a little transistor. And I have no idea what this is. I've never seen that on a PC motherboard. Maybe it's a little oscillator, something like that. I find this motherboard funny. It's got SIM slots, as I mentioned before. But look at this area here. I assume this is either for some kind of DRAM or perhaps cache memory. All right, I'm going to yank this out of this case. All right, so these are all the parts that I took out of that case. Let's take a look at this motherboard here. So there's a warranty sticker here that is from 1996. So I'm not sure if that's when this motherboard was sold or what. But this motherboard just does appear to be a relatively inexpensive Taiwanese board. The really crappy QC OK sticker, that doesn't really instill a lot of quality, does it? It has a Phoenix BIOS. There is a sticker there showing that it's original. VLSI chipset, also 1995 date. So this thing really was built in 2000. These parts were just sitting around for a long time. But
oh yeah, they just randomly
these guys,
sit
they probably
around.
bought a huge stack of these,
I don't know
and just were slowly putting them in these systems as they sold them. That way they were running with exactly the same hardware. As I mentioned before, it's running an AMD 36SX 40 megahertz. I love that it's got a Microsoft Windows logo, and it says it's Windows compatible, as if you needed to be told. This right here, it looks like this is where a crystal oscillator would go, and it's got this very strange part installed. Should look like one of these here. This is a 66 megahertz one, which is weird because if that's the main clock for the system, they take that and they divide by 2.
Just to let you know, we are part of the museum. I am part of the museum of telepathy. Ooh, that's kind of cool. I got to look at that call director link. All right, so enough with that. We're gonna switch.